The seafood you buy at the supermarket may not always be what it says on the label. It says tuna, and you end up getting scrod. A new report out this morning found 1 in 5 samples of fish tested from markets and restaurants were mislabeled. The U.S. imports about 90% of its seafood. But once those shipments cross the border, the report says they are rarely tracked all the way to your table. Anna Werner is here to explain. Anna, good morning.
Good morning. Well, if you order snapper at a restaurant, you expect to get snapper, and you might be upset to learn if it's not. But this new report finds that may be happening with your seafood more often than you think.
Wherever we tested, we found mislabeled seafood.
Beth Lowell with advocacy group Oceana has been working to stop seafood fraud for nearly a decade.
The consumer thinks that they're getting a high-priced fish, and instead they're getting the cheaper alternative when they are being ripped off.
The group collected 449 samples from restaurants, small markets, and grocery stores in 24 states and D.C. and found 1 out of 5 samples were mislabeled. 1 in every 3 businesses visited sold at least 1 item that was not labeled correctly. The biggest offenders, snapper and sea bass, with 42% and 55% of the samples found to be fraudulent.
Well, the problem is seafood fraud can happen any time in the supply chain where one fish is swapped out for another. It could be because somebody wants to sell a cheaper fish at a higher price, or if they're trying to fill all the orders for salmon and there's not enough salmon, they may swap something else out.
Not only can that fraud cheat consumers, but Oceana reports it continues to find vulnerable species, those that have been overfished, mislabeled. Some restaurants are now focusing on using only local sustainable fish.
These are oyster shots.
Mayanoki is a tiny sushi restaurant in New York City where you won't find the famous but threatened bluefin tuna, says owner TJ Provenzano.
I always make the joke, we don't sell bluefin tuna and we don't sell cheetah. It's why are we able to, have one endangered species on our menu in New York City and not another one? It's confusing to me.
So instead of the usual tuna and salmon, Chef Jeff Miller creates sushi featuring regional species, like the one named Blue Runner, commonly known as baitfish.
The perfect American sushi fish right here. And it's so overlooked, and I feel like I'm in on a huge sushi secret.
As a result, Provenzano doesn't have to worry much about fraud.
And that's what we say all the time is the fish that we're serving, nobody would want to fake.
They're not interested.
Exactly.
And it's a good thing for you.
It is indeed. And for the guest as well. And, let me be frank, there is no sacrifice in quality when it comes to eating these things. They are absolutely beautiful species that are just kind of underappreciated.
But with most restaurants still serving imported seafood, Oceana says the government needs to keep better track of which species are going where.
We mean to be tracking seafood from the fishing boat or farm all the way through the supply chain.
Last year, the government started a monitoring program for some seafood, but Lowell says only 13 species are tracked, and once in the U.S., they're no longer followed. Now, NOAA, the government agency responsible for the program, told us that it tracks seafood that is, quote, particularly vulnerable to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and seafood fraud. It says the program was not designed to trace seafood products after they enter the U.S. market.
Really interesting. But Bianna, why do you think we did this story?
Just for the halibut?
Just for the halibut?
Thanks, Catherine Meeker.
But I'm pumped, Anna.
Never heard
Run, Anna, run.
It's what makes us happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.